All right, and welcome once again to the light powered by AtlanticCityFocus.com, where every Tuesday is civic engagement and election day Tuesday. But of course, we have a primary coming up in less than a month. So every day between now and June 10th, we're going to be giving you good information about coming elections. And two things of note for people in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, your primary day is today. And for the people of New Jersey, your last opportunity to register to vote for the June primary is today. If you have not done so, you can do that by going online at nj.gov. Uh, you can still register to vote online here in New Jersey. I am thrilled to be able to have one of the gubernatorial candidates for governor here with us today on the light powered by AtlanticCityFocus.com, the one and only Mr. Sean Spiller. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. And so, because you have a busy schedule, we'll go ahead and get started. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners and our viewers and tell us about your platform, please?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Listen, first, just I'm running for governor because of my lived experiences. I think, like most folks, we're shaped by everything that's happened to us and who we are. And for me, my story is one of being a young boy coming to this country. I'm born in Jamaica. My parents chose to move to this country when my brother and I were really young, chasing the American dream. But right away, I saw how hard it was. My dad would be away for months at a time, sending dollars home from the jobs. My mom, who was a math teacher in Jamaica, was trying to find something else here to make it work for us as a family. So right away, I saw how hard it was to afford. I followed in my mom's footsteps, became a teacher myself, a science teacher here. But again, the conversations I'd hear of the parents of the kids that I teach, how hard it was to afford New Jersey, it always stuck with me. And then, of course, becoming eventually a labor leader. Now I represent, as president, almost 200,000 educators in this state. But again, it's folks who have a hard time paying for health insurance and caring for their families while they're caring for others. I've seen that as a labor leader. And I've seen it also become a mayor and a council person in Montclair for 12 years, served in that role. And there as well, right, would see families who are struggling with affordability, right? How do you afford to rent? How do you afford to buy a home? Passed the first ever rent control law in Montclair here as mayor because of that challenge. So there's a lot of things that have shown me along the way that New Jersey is a great place to live, but it's just a hard place to afford. So for me, it's been how do I get out there and help folks? And that means around housing. We've got to be able to buy homes and rent homes, rent apartments. That's two. We've got to be able to afford quality, affordable healthcare. That's got to be a huge piece of it. The third one is childcare, quality childcare and daycare. That's a big cost for so many families. And the last one also is about energy costs that keep going up and certainly the environment. Those two things are linked. So that's been my main focus, but also understanding that, listen, it's personal to me as an immigrant, as I said before. What we're seeing at the national level, a president of the United States who's literally coming after children and trying to separate them from their families. What we're seeing is somebody who's trying to underfund every single program that we rely on, whether it's our children or our seniors, cutting funding for veterans and VA, every level we're facing a threat from the president, quite frankly. And as governor, I'm going to stand up for every single resident and fight for what we need. So it's all of those reasons why I'm running. And I'll say that the big difference between who I am and all of the others is, quite frankly, who I'm going to be fighting for. Because when you listen, especially in the Democratic primary, about all of the different conversations, there's some similarities. But the big difference is this: every single one of my opponents in this race on the Democratic side is funded by big dollar special interests. They're funded by the big political bosses. They're funded by Wall Street. They're funded by big developers in their cities. They're funded by, all these folks who then make that phone call when someone is trying to follow through on their promises. And we are all left frustrated, as we normally are, saying it doesn't matter who we elect, we get the same old thing. So for me, that's a little bit of who I am. It's why I'm running. It's what I'm running for, and it's quite frankly why I'm going to be able to deliver when the others aren't. It's because I'm fighting for the middle class. I've lived that life, and that's who I've always fought for throughout my whole life. I think you're still muted on my end anyway. Not sure I'm hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Um, I want to say thank you for your service as a teacher because all of my teachers made a profound effect on me. I'm the man I am today because of great teachers. And you say you were a science teacher, so I want to just say rest in peace to my biology teacher, Mr. Ben Castor. He was a he was a character, but he was a great man, and he
Oh,
taught me a lot about biology and science. And the only thing that kept me out of a career in science was math. So,
yeah.
but anyway, if you're just tuning in, we're here with gubernatorial governor candidate for governor, Mr. Sean Spiller, and we thank you for stopping by. So let me ask you this to start off. I was at the candidates forum sponsored by the African American Chamber of Commerce a few weeks ago, maybe about a month or so ago. And one thing that came up was the fact that um, some of the same problems that Jersey has had over the past 8 years have persisted and have not gotten better. So let's say Sean Spiller wins the election. How does New Jersey look different 4 years from now?
Well, first and foremost, just by winning the election, we're changing New Jersey because I've said this that fundamentally we need to change systems. It was in the conversation that we had, at that chamber event, as you noted, right? We were talking about the disparity study, we were talking about so many other things, but at the end of the day, it came down to changing systems. So the first thing I'll say is by getting elected, we're changing the system that only allows somebody who is very wealthy or somebody who is supported by millionaires, billionaires or the political bosses to win as governor in New Jersey, because that is what we've always had in New Jersey. So if you have always done that, there's a reason why we get what we always get, because that is an interest that wants to have the status quo, wants to keep having the wealthy become, even wealthier, et cetera. By electing me, that changes. Now, secondly, when we talk about changing, or I talk about changing systems, right? Let's go to what the chamber conversation was about. African American chamber conversation. It was about the disparity study was one of the big conversations, and we were saying, hey, listen, you can't operate in systems where it says you're going to be rewarded for previous work. Well, that doesn't help, communities of color who haven't gotten that previous work in the past, right? Because that's now a limiting factor. It doesn't help when you say, hey, listen, what's your bonding ability? Right? When we don't have that bonding ability because we don't have that track record, so we can't get the banks to give the dollars. It doesn't help when you say, hey, current businesses get to pick their subcontractors. Guess what? Predominantly white male-owned businesses pick predominantly white male-owned businesses as their subcontractors, right? So the systems are all set up and designed to work exactly the way they're working, right? They're working effectively for what they were designed to do. But that doesn't work for you and me. It doesn't work for so many folks in this state. So for me, under a Spiller administration, what you'll see is fundamental changing of these systems to say we've got to start at the base point to say, how do we change? How do we modify? How do we bring in different voices, more diverse voices to discuss what the playing field should look like, to discuss how we are going to reward and offer the supports that government can lend that helping hand to folks to get started, to get going, to build that business or to get in that first home or all of these other pieces that are important. So it's changing systems. It's bringing the right voices to the table. And that's what I say all the time. Our voices have never been at the table. And it's important for us to be there, not only sitting at the table now, but to be sitting at the head of the table.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to WLFR Pomona here on the campus of Stockton University. The name of the show is called The Light, powered by AtlanticCityFocus.com. And we're here with candidate for governor, Mr. Sean Spiller. You talked about disparities, and as a business owner, I'm definitely concerned with the disparities of business in New Jersey. But what concerns me more as a uncle to a beautiful niece who is about to go into college and may one day be a mother are the health disparities between women of color, childbearing age, and also their white counterparts. Also, the health in general of people of color uh, in black communities and white communities are as much as 12 to 15 years difference in life expectancy. Is there anything that you can do as governor to address those issues?
Yeah, there's everything that I could do as governor, right? And I think it's because everything is connected. We can have a conversation about energy and the environment. You say, well, Sean, what are you talking about? Well, I'm saying that, hey, look at where most of our coal burning, our oil burning fire plant, energy plants are, right? Look where we're polluting the most, right? Look where we have the highest incidence of asthma. Look where we have the biggest health impacts, right? It is communities of color, right? Because we have made energy decisions that have placed a lot of these things in areas of proximity to communities of color. When we talk about, our 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 sanitation plants, when we talk about our waste disposal, when we talk about all of these other things, where are they often concentrated? Our communities of color. There's an environmental, there's a health impact associated with that. So we can talk about it from that lens. We can talk about it from the lens of opportunity, right? So you look right now at where we have our hospital care networks and where there are opportunities for folks to get the care that they need. We look at the healthcare that's available, meaning the healthcare plans. Again, many coming through employers, many folks not having it. Oftentimes we see in communities of color a higher percentage of folks who do not have access to healthcare. What does that mean? They're not getting the preventative care, not getting the wellness care, right? All of these things that build up. When you're talking about maternal health, right? Again, we see the disparities that exist. You've got to have all of those wraparound services, but we see even in those instances, we also have to have an issue, a conversation around culture competency, right? Because we see that doctors don't listen to specifically women of color, right? When they come in and share concerns or issues. There are so many layers to this. So when you ask, what could I do as governor? It really is about everything, right? It's how we plan and where we place things. It is how we provide opportunities through the healthcare system. It's how do we get healthcare costs that are more manageable and getting more people covered. It's how do we make sure that government itself and then the businesses that we connect with and the entities that we support have better cultural competency to understand and listen to all voices, including Black voices. So every one of these things is going to make a difference in that gap that you're talking about there, because all of them contribute to it now.
All right. We are here with candidate for governor Sean Spiller. And correct me if I'm wrong, you are the current mayor of Montclair?
Former mayor, immediate
Former
past mayor
mayor
of
of
Montclair.
Montclair.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Now, well, listen, finished up, had to run for something called governor, so I'm doing that right now.
And we thank him for taking time to be with us. Now, of course, it goes without saying, I hate to say this because people act like people of color don't know that if you become governor, you're going to be governor for everybody, not just black people. But if you don't say that, then they'll be calling the station. What do you mean by that? So anyway, with that being said, talk to me about access. Once you become governor, how will people be able to get access to you? Because you said that you're definitely not in the pockets of big money. So I know I can't write you a big radio station disc jockey check to get to have lunch with you. How can your constituents uh, get access to you, or even talk about how your constituents got access to you when you were mayor?
Yeah, well, listen, I'll say this as mayor, they just come knock on the door. So that's probably the biggest difference, right? Your neighbors just pop on by. So,
Yeah,
but
oh,
look,
take me to Sean's house. We
yeah, exactly what happened. Just come over the house. But I'll say this. I think, fundamentally for me, it starts before getting into office even, right? It's sitting down, looking at all the boards, commissions, all the appointments that a governor makes and saying, hey, how are we talking with folks within the community who have been doing this work, right? That I have been a partner with, right? As an activist, as an organizer, as a mobilizer for many years, saying, hey, around strong housing policy, let's bring in the folks who are working towards a better housing policy. Let's make them part of not only the conversation, but part of the leadership decisions, right? Let's make sure around education, we're bringing forward folks who are going to continue to make sure we're teaching a true history, a full history, not writing anyone out of our history books. Let's bring them in and make them part of the State Board of Education. It's all the different layers when you before you even get in, making sure our voices are there. So when you talk about how does somebody, come talk to me, it's making sure not just you're talking to me, it's saying, hey, I'm going to go into all of the different community groups, organizations that have been doing the work and putting those folks in the positions that are making decisions. That's number one. Then through that structure, right, the public, all of us have an opportunity to interact. We know most often with that agency, with that board that you reach out to for whatever issue. Now you're talking with somebody who's truly reflective of what we're trying to do as an administration, which is connected to the communities in which we're trying to serve. And then I think, of course, more broadly, if it's the governor specifically, that those tables, those folks a governor traditionally listens to, the difference there is this, right? Those tables have always been set by some very rich person or somebody who's been put there by some very rich person sitting at the head as the governor, and they're surrounded by right the hospital CEOs because they're the ones that fund these campaigns. They can write a bigger check than you. Let me just to flag that one, right? They're sitting with all the insurance companies because they can write the bigger checks than you and me, right? They're sitting there with all those folks. For me, I'm not taking money from those folks. So I'm sitting there with people like you, right? Me, who understand that we're still in the community and what we're hearing from the community all the time. And we're able to share what the latest issues that we continue to hear are. So that's how I think this is fundamentally and structurally different. And it starts even before I'm in office with who I'm putting in all of the positions that are decision making that often are the contact points for so many people in the public.
Yeah, well, I don't know if hospital CEO makes as much as I do. I've got about $112 in 4 or 5 different banks, so I'm doing all right. I have enough money to live for the rest of my life as long as I die today.
Oh,
Uh,
good.
you are listening to The Light right here on 91.7 WLFR Pomona, and we are here with Sean Spiller, who is running for governor for the state of New Jersey. I want to touch on something that you said earlier about history being written out. And so, since you represent educators and since you are an educator yourself, this is a question I probably won't ask other governor candidates, but I think you may be able to touch on this. Uh, History is being written out, and the excuse is that if you teach that the Native Americans or indigenous people were slaughtered, if you teach that black people were enslaved, it makes portions of the population feel bad. Do you think teachers are under any compulsion to uh, make history and the genocides that were being committed more palatable toward to the students that you teach?
Well, listen, just think about just how you even had to. As I listen to you, I hear you painfully trying to figure out how you word that question, because genocide should never be palatable, right? None of us want to accept it. None of us want to minimize. None of us want to, gloss over what that was like. Any of those things you described, right? So, I think, look, as an educator, it's appropriate to always make sure we're doing age-appropriate lessons, and that is, of course, what an educator does all the time. So, depending on the age, you're learning about different things in different ways, for sure. But none of that means you whitewash history. None of that means you leave things out. None of that means you don't tell a true accounting of what occurred. And by the way, if it's offensive, it should be offensive because what occurred was offensive, right? So I think at the end of the day, it's also an understanding or reflection, though. We learn about these things so we can understand and make improvements from them, right? And not do them again, right? That's the whole point, right? So I think, it's shame on us if we're even entertaining the idea that somehow it's acceptable to kind of write these things out because, somebody learns about it and feels bad. Guess what? Every person feels bad when they learn about it, right? It doesn't matter what color they are. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter anything. Every child feels bad when they learn about this. They should feel bad, right? These are things that were atrocities, and certainly we learn about them not just for the sake of feeling bad. It's because, yeah, you feel bad because they were terrible, and here's how we can learn to not have that happen again, and here's what you can do about it as a citizen in this country to make sure that we don't, both here and abroad, right? So that's the conversation. But I think it's troubling when you see right now. And I was down in D.C. protesting actually Linda McMahon's confirmation. But when you literally hear during her confirmation hearing, and she is directly asked, do you think teaching Black history could be a violation of Donald Trump's executive order? And she says yes. That is a problem, right? Because I remember it was during Black History Month, right? And I was speaking at a college the next day or the day after, I can't remember. I remember speaking, and I said, just being here speaking about, and my conversation was about the intersection of the civil rights movement and labor. And I said, being here speaking about this issue right now is a violation of what the Secretary of Education and the President of the United States think, right? And that fundamentally is the problem. And it's also another huge reason why we need a governor, right, in this state. Quite frankly, the first, someone who would be the first Black governor in our state's history, somebody who is an educator, first in our state's history, somebody who is a labor leader, first in our state's history. You're fighting for what our values should be, and pushing back against what they're trying to feed to us at the federal level. So it's more important than ever. It's at the core of not losing touch with at least the ideals we've always stride for, even if we've never met them in this country. We still need to try and reach for them. And certainly, as governor, I'm going to make sure that we are. I've got folks on the state board who understand that, and the curriculum that we're using is true, full, accurate, and doesn't try to write anyone out of our history. Because I'll tell you this, I'm convinced they're trying to write us out of the history so that we don't see ourselves in the future. And that's problematic for any young child, and certainly all of us. So certainly not on my watch. Not going to happen.
All right, we are talking to Sean Spiller right here on the light, powered by Atlantic City Focus.com. I promise you, I'm going to connect this next question to your campaign.
Okay.
So, our Atlantic City Focus book of the week this week is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. And of course, you know that there's been some controversy about N-word Jim. I'm on the radio, or else I would say what the N-word is. We know what the N-word is. As an educator, should that name be sanitized in the book Huckleberry Finn?
Oh, that's a very specific question. I'd say this. I mean, any educator knows, and again, like we talked about before, is age specific. Like you read the book, I read a book, right? We read what we read. I think every one of us has a role, certainly as educators and even as parents, to decide, do we think our child is ready for, comfortable, reading any type of any book, right, or any content. But I think at some juncture, listen, everything is in the context of the age in which it was written. Everything is in the context of certainly the environment that existed, and certainly the effect that someone is trying to have, right? So understanding that context, certainly I think I'll just say this, we've got a 7-year-old and 4-year-old. My wife and I, I'm sure when we have that conversation at some point, we will want them to read, a wide breadth of books, and including fully what is written there, right? But I think that we'll find out what age we think that's appropriate, and move forward with that. But I think that's, to me, less of an issue as opposed to the policies, the efforts right now that are ongoing to maybe not talk about the language and the words that are used, but with all due respect, kind of bring us back to a place where they're stripping rights and opportunities away from folks of color. To me, that is more offensive than even what a child or an adolescent may or may not be reading.
Well, the reason I brought that up was to jump off of that onto this. As governor, with the current stand that the White House has on speech on college campuses, as governor, will you? Well, what is your view? Because I'm on a college campus right now doing this show, and we all know of something that is going on in the Middle East where people are being denied access to food, where there is a quote unquote war going on. I call it a quote unquote war because I personally don't know of a situation where civilians, women, and children are being attacked daily and it's a war. In my opinion, that's a slaughter. But I can't go into any more specifics than that because somebody might hear and say I'm anti this and anti that and come in here and shut the mic off. And on some college campuses, young people are being deported because of their stand. It was always my understanding that college campuses were the one place in the world where people from all different backgrounds and ideologies, even ones that I don't agree with personally, or maybe Sean Spiller doesn't agree with personally, could come and have a discussion. So, as governor, what will be your stand to young people being deported for or being victimized for writing an op-ed or for taking a stand on a position or for taking a position on a particular uh, war or stand or president?
Yeah.
Or let's say you're governor and somebody at Rutgers wants to protest against Sean Spiller.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't see that happening, but you never. But listen, in all seriousness, I say this. Listen, for me, this is personal, right? Because as I noted to you and all your listeners as I came on here today, look, I'm an immigrant, right? And I remember going through that naturalization process. I remember my parents going through it for over a decade, and you know, right now we're seeing what this administration is doing is weaponizing it to say not only if you're a student, but a professor as well. We're seeing, right? If you say the wrong thing, if you say something they don't like, all of a sudden they're pulling your naturalization process, kicking you out of the country, deporting you, and that's unacceptable. That should scare every single one of us in this state, in this country, because it's fundamentally against what we've always said, a freedom of speech, right? The ability to be able to say things, to be able to have discourse, conversation. Right now, that is being undermined. So when I say they're coming for all of us, I truly mean it, right? I mean it in the sense of when they, round folks up for deportation. Guess what? They're rounding up folks who served in the U.S. military. They're rounding up folks who are U.S. citizens because nobody walks around with papers. When they're deporting people from college campuses, our students and our professors, that should worry everybody because today it's maybe something they don't like that they're saying. Tomorrow it's something they don't like that you're saying, right? So these are scary times, and this is when we all need to stand up. So for me specifically, I think it's important that there's a few things. Number one, our college campuses have clear guidance and directions, including from the state, to say here is some of the basic framework that needs to be worked out in collaboration on campuses as to what civil conversation will look like. Some basic guardrails so we know that it doesn't become offensive, certainly, or violent or anything like that for sure. But we're going to agree on these guardrails across our college campuses. Then we are not going to arbitrarily, go after some because we don't like what they specifically are saying. They are working and engaging through the agreed upon, conversation and guideline parameters that we've got there. Then use your free speech, right? Make sure you make your comments, write your op-eds, do all the things that you're talking about, and you should not face any kind of retaliation. Right now, we're seeing that without that framework, many colleges and universities, a little bit rudderless, are feeling that pressure from the federal government, and they are deciding to just censor some things. They decide to just go after some people, and that's a problem, right? So, as governor, it would be working in collaboration with our New Jersey institutions to develop that framework again with folks on the campus, including students, so that again everybody feels comfortable and confident that we can engage in conversations, including differing opinions, including very passionately, but again doing so in a way that doesn't jeopardize someone's immigration status or certainly face other kind of penalties or consequences that we're seeing happen now.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Light powered by AtlanticCityFocus.com. We're here with Sean Spiller, who's taken time out of his busy schedule to speak with us today. And I promise we're going to get to the issues that are important to the guy who works third shift and drives the bus and things of that matter. But as a radio station host, uh, free speech is very important to me. And I'm going to give you this is the one question I'm going to give you the option to say no comment on because it involves someone else not named Sean Spiller. Uh, I'm curious, where were you when Raz Baraka was arrested, and what are your thoughts on his arrest?
Yeah, listen, I'll say this. I called on every person, every Democratic candidate to show up at Delaney Hall after I saw that arrest. And that's exactly what I did. To be fair, Congressman Gottheimer joined me. And we showed up there to say, hey, listen, we are all out here, right? We all are, right? I'm at protest rallies, at Tesla rallies, we're all in different spaces throughout this state right now. I think making sure our voices are heard. To your point, exercising our free speech to say what we see here, what we see there, things that are going on are unacceptable. Now, all of us should have that right. What should never happen is that anyone is detained, arrested, gone after for expressing their freedom of speech, for speaking out against something that they think is problematic. So when I saw the mayor and what happened to him, I showed up because I said, hey, listen, if they come after one of us, we all have to show that there is going to be another one who stands up right there in that space the very next moment to make sure that we are not silenced. We are going to stand arm in arm to push back against folks who are trying to silence our voices. And we were there to do that, and that's exactly what we did. And I think it's wrong anytime anybody again comes after someone because of what they're saying and noting. And so I'm constantly going to keep standing up for folks like I've always done. Look, I'm a labor leader, and one of the most important things we talk about, and it's at the core of the labor movement, is solidarity. Right? You don't do anything alone. You're never standing by yourself. That's the power of unity. That's the power of our strength when we come together. So I understand that inherently, and certainly as governor, I'll understand how important that is as well, because this is not something where we see the pressures we're facing federally, and we're going to have a governor where I can go there and just say I'm solving all our problems. It is going to be me saying, public, we all have a role in this. We have a role to still organize and mobilize and come together and speak out and protest so many of the things that we're seeing at the federal level, so many of the things that are against our conscience, so many of the things that are against the funding losses that we've seen. We are going to have to speak up loudly, quite frankly, to help make sure legislators in this state do the right thing, and get us the policies we need to protect against what's happening. So, for me, that's something that is at the core of who I am. I'm somebody who understands solidarity at its strongest moments.
Thank you for asking that question. All right, let's get into some kitchen table issues. Every candidate for any office that has stopped by, I've asked them this question, uh, and so here goes. Uh, I'm going to frame it the same way I did to them. I can go to Walmart and get me a box and throw it in the middle of the parking lot and claim that I deserve $2,000 a month for that as a duplex. Uh, how do we fix this insane housing problem, which to me starts with the fact that $2,000 a month for single person, not even family unit housing is beyond insane. Is it, do you, I'm glad you talked about rent control. Is that the answer? Do we increase wages? Do we build affordable housing? I'm only a radio station disc jockey. Uh, I only know that I'm about to get me a box and put it in a parking lot and charge $2,000 a month.
Well, listen, I think it speaks volumes that you, right, as you said, right, maybe you take it in a deep dive, maybe you haven't, but inherently you've got a bunch of ideas that could all help the problem right now. So the answer is yes. The challenge is we never get that because of the systems that we've got right now. Right now, we've got folks who are funded by big developers, right? That's where they get their money to run for governor. When they are elected, I ask you this question. Do you think they're going to be focused on what you just described, creating housing that's affordable? Because I can tell you they're going to get the call from the big developers who say, you know what we want? We want maximum profits. That is why we never get the policies we need from the people we elect. I'm telling you, we need to change that if we want to get the policies that we need. So for me, listen, here is what I say about housing. Number one, I come at this from a place where it took me over 2 years to be able to find my first home in Montclair, multifamily home that I could afford, and was getting bid. But I finally got one. But right now, I'll tell you this: I could never buy that home right now in Montclair because they are all getting gobbled up by LLCs, venture capitalists, Wall Street. They're gobbling up all of the property around this state. And they're doing it because they want to get ownership and control, and then they raise the rents. They're raising the rents on all of us, right? So we have got to create a period, which is what I've said I would do, where we, the people, have a chance to buy and purchase homes first, where we are not competing against LLCs, venture capitalists, corporate interests that bid up our prices, outbid us altogether, or give us a mortgage we can't afford. So that's the first thing, making sure we have an opportunity at true home ownership. The second thing with rents, yes, I'm proud to pass the first ever rent control law in Montclair here. But I can also tell you that is a stopgap measure. What we need more broadly is housing that's affordable, including rental units, where we do not rely on developers to give us what we need. What's happening in town after town, city after city, municipality after municipality around this state is that they're going to developers and they're saying, can you build us some affordable units? The developers say, no problem. I'll build you some affordable units under the law, right? What's required. But then they're saying, but the rest of them, I'll build you 20 of those, but I want 100, I want 200, I want 400, much more expensive, higher end luxury units that I'm going to charge a ton for. And that's what they keep building. And then for the rest of us, to your point, like you said, we see a small little box there or whatever we get, and it costs us so much money, right? I, as governor, would invest. I would put dollars into supporting towns, municipalities, cities to say, we are going to build housing that's affordable with you. But we're not going to just build the 20 affordable units, right? And again, whoever qualifies under the law, we're also going to build workforce housing units. Those are folks who earn a little bit more than the affordable housing threshold, but still could never afford to pay the rents that people are seeing. We need workforce housing. We need senior housing as another band in there to help folks be able to stay in our communities. We need veterans housing as another one. We need housing for folks with disabilities. So instead of, again, just building those 20 affordable and 400 high-end luxury, as governor, through those partnerships I just described, we can build 20 affordable. We can build 20 workforce housing. We can build 20 senior housing. We can build 20 veteran housing. And we can build a total unit structure of 150, 200, something much more in line with the character of our communities as well. So it's through investment, it's through understanding the issue, having lived it myself, and it's certainly making sure that we've got somebody who can actually follow through on those policies that I just described and the ones you articulated to start with the question. We can do it. It's just a matter of we don't, because whom we elect is always beholden to the very interests that keep it a problem. And that's big developers, big Wall Street money, big political brokers who reap the benefit of us being overcharged and squeezed the way we are now.
All right. We are here with candidate for governor Sean Spiller. He's our guest here this morning on the light. We've got about another 20 minutes or so. So I will. I still have a long list of questions, but since you took time to be with us here today, talk to us about what you see is the number one issue on your mind as a candidate for governor right now?
Well, listen, I appreciate we just took a little bit of a deeper dive on housing. And I think in the remaining 20, I'd love to chat a little bit about healthcare. I think that's a huge one affecting so many families. I think I see you holding up your list. So I got it. I know it's on there. So we'll get to healthcare in a minute. So I'll hold off. It's about childcare, early education, as I said, that $19,000 a year average cost. So we got to talk about that. And certainly I want to close out maybe talking about energy costs, right, and environment and things like that. But when you ask me what do I think the most important thing is, and again, you're hearing me say this a little bit like a broken record, but it's because when I knock on doors right now, right, and I knock on doors Inherently, I talk to somebody, we chat for a while. They go, you know what? I appreciate you stopping by. I like you. Give me one of your signs. Sign me up. I'm gonna come. I'm gonna vote for you. But they say, you know what though, Sean? I got to tell you, what's the difference? What's the difference between you and all the others? And when they say that, they don't mean me and all the other Democrats. They mean me and all the other politicians, right? Because they're like, you're all the same. And
That's the meat.
what they mean is that no matter how many times we've all been told this is the most important election, no matter how many times we've all been told voting matters, no matter how many times we've all had these conversations, they know, you know what? It didn't help me afford my rent anymore, right? It didn't help me buy my groceries any easier. It didn't help me send my kids to college. Like it just seems like this is getting harder, not easier. And they're not wrong. So for me, the most important issue in this campaign is showing why Sean Spiller, as governor, is going to be different than what we've always gotten. And at the end of the day, hate to say it, but you got to follow the money. You got to follow the money. We're the only campaign that I can think of ever for governor in this state that is supported by working class folks, truly working class folks, starting at a foundation, educators, right? What I mean by that is teachers, school bus drivers, aides, cafeteria workers, like working class folks. And beyond that, of course, general public, working class folks. But every other campaign, every other candidate in this race, and I mean literally, and you can look at their reports, you can look at who's funding their independent expenditures. It is literally funded by Wall Street. We've got somebody, a congressman who's got the most money ever from Wall Street, right? We've got big developers. We see a city where it's been built up and the campaign is fully funded by the big developers. We see another mayor, right, fully funded by the pro voucher, right, anti-public education folks, big money. We see another candidate who is literally picked by the political bosses, right? And she's out there saying her thing, but she is going to do what the political bosses tell her. Every single candidate and every single time we've ever run elections is supported by these same big dollar, big boss interests. And we cannot expect change unless we do it differently. And I get my privilege, right? I get the understanding that I start as a labor leader. Labor, we know how to organize, come together, do all the things. And that's why this is a start point, a viable campaign, and we're growing it from there. But at the end of the day, I think the people need to come together to say, folks, unless we finally elect somebody who is not going to be beholden to Wall Street, and all those, we're not going to get the changes we need. So I want to talk about those other issues that we just mentioned, but I'm saying to everybody out there, which is at the core, that little nagging thought in the back of your head of what's the difference? How is this not just another quote unquote politician making promises? I can tell you they always are because they have to be to get the money that they need to run in races. I am telling you, we're different because we are not funded that way. We are not supported that way. And that is why I can honor the commitments that I'm talking about and truly fight for the working class.
So if you become governor, are you going to? I think you did say this, but I'm going to ask you specifically so that a radio station disc jockey can understand. Um, and apologies to my fellow disc jockeys. Um, all of them aren't Raymond Tyler. So some of them are quite smart. So my question is, when you become governor, are you going to figure out a way to start uh, uh, taking things down, or at least making it so people can run for office without having to get a corporation to invest
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Thank you for that question. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, right now we have a system where, thankfully, we saw lawsuits that have helped eliminate the lines, right? Which were literally bosses just controlling who gets to run and who gets the line. That's a positive development. Yes, though, we need to change systems where it's literally just based on money if you can get in the debate stage or not, not how many signatures you've gotten, right? One of the most of any campaign, not how many people have shown energy and around the state, not the polling that shows you right there, right at the tops of all these polls and right with everybody. None of those things matter. It's about money. So yes, I absolutely will be working, right, to change the way that we bring in dollars to fund campaigns. We see right now where they just increase contribution limits. They just did that recently. By the way, that doesn't help you or me because it doesn't mean all of a sudden we can give massive, bigger checks. It just helps millionaires, billionaires because they can. So all of these things, show us it's moving in the wrong direction. And I warn everybody, we see it where it's totally out of control at the federal level, but we are not that far behind here in New Jersey, and we've got to change it. So absolutely, will I be working to change that? Yes, I will.
Okay. All right. Real quickly, and then I'll get to a healthcare question. New Jersey has Central Jersey. You have Little New York, and then you have Southern New Jersey with the Shoebies. So basically, New Jersey is one of the states that has three states in one. What are your thoughts on being a governor for all those different New Jerseys?
Well, listen, I think I inherently have an advantage here that none of the other candidates do. I say it as somebody who represents educators and educators in every single community in this state. So for almost 12 years now, I have literally been up and down this state visiting every single one of our school districts, spending time in every single one of our communities, working with organizers and activists in every single space to fight for what we need in our communities, the supports that are there. And I've had the opportunity to see how, in so many ways, we are similar and the ways in which we're different. And I think that's pretty special. I think that's going to be a very big strength coming into this position as governor, understanding those dynamics and also having relationships, even including with legislators that represent people in all of the different parts of this state. That's going to be important trying to get things done. So through all of that, I think I come in at a much stronger spot than most others do. I'm going to be making sure I'm trying to bring forward those concerns that different folks have in the decisions that I make.
Okay. Um, our president claims that he has a big, beautiful bill that is effectively going to snatch health care uh, from millions of people at the
Yeah.
most modest estimate. Uh, what is your plan as governor to protect uh, healthcare, Medicaid, Medicare for New Jersey residents? And is there a way, as governor, you can perhaps even expand those benefits to make sure more people are covered?
So let's just put this in the context, though, which is, I think, just even more disturbing than you're even describing. We are right now facing a president who is implementing tariffs which disproportionately hurt working class folks, right? So all of us are seeing the, quite frankly, largest tax increase we have ever seen. Whether you're trying to buy a car, you're trying to buy furniture for your apartment or house, whether you're trying to do anything, right? We're seeing a massive tax on us, the working class folks. At the same time, at the very same time that this president, Elon Musk, the puppet master, and all the others are working to steal every dime out of every single program that we rely on so they can give massive tax breaks to billionaires and rich corporations, right? So that's the dynamic that we find ourselves in right now. So knowing that context, knowing we're in our state, we always had challenges and we were already faced with a deficit budget where we are spending more than we are bringing in right now, which is problematic, right, in terms of structure. We have a dynamic where we've got to figure out ways to plug holes that are occurring at the federal level on top of the challenges we already face at the state level. So, a couple things that I think are going to be key. Number one, we need to look at healthcare plans themselves and make sure we're providing quality, better quality plans and care at better cost. I am the only one in this race that has literally designed healthcare plans, spending almost a year designing healthcare plans for the School Employees Health Benefits Commission. And through that process, designing a plan that literally has saved, and hear me, this is the billions of dollars for both employers and employees, the people using and the people also helping to pay as the employer. That is huge, right? It's huge. And as governor, I will do that more broadly for the state. I know how to do it. It's right now we need to get through the lack of transparency with Horizon and the insurance companies, see what they're charging us and the big cost drivers are. It's looking at their relationships between them and their hospitals and doctors and seeing how they're paying out. We've got to make sure we change that structure again, as we've done in the plans we've designed. And through that, we can save billions. That's important because we need to get those savings on quality care that we can help expand and give more people coverage. But we still need more dollars, especially if the federal government is pulling away so many. So I say this, in New Jersey, we are going to need bold action. And as governor, I will boldly say we need to change New Jersey tax code to get dollars from the millionaires, billionaires, and rich corporations that are about to get a windfall in tax breaks at the federal level. We need to change New Jersey tax policy to get every dime of that back, right? To make sure we can invest in the programs that they are trying to cut here in New Jersey. We cannot make up for the billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars that we face as losses from the federal government by nibbling around the edges, finding a few dollars in our budget to plug these holes. It is around healthcare when we're having these conversations. It is around education when they're talking about the 1.1 billion they're cutting from us there. It is about funding for the VA. It's about funding for Medicaid. It is about Medicare that they're going after. It is about underfunding our elections. It is about coming after dollars in every single way, which is what they're doing. We cannot make that up by taking minor steps, right? We need bold action. So it is changing New Jersey tax policy. It is creating healthcare systems that can provide better quality care at a lower cost and expanding that, but we only do it with the dollars that we need as well. So that's what I'm going to do as governor.
Now, you know, your detractors will say if you raise taxes on corporations, they
Oh,
won't
stop,
leave
stop,
New
stop,
Jersey.
stop, stop. I'm tired of
I'm
it. I'm tired
asking a
of hearing
question.
it. I'm tired of hearing it, right? Let me just say this. For all you billionaires, let me lean into it again. All you billionaires and millionaires out there, don't you worry. You're going to be just fine because the federal government's giving you a massive tax break, right? So you're going to be no worse off. But I got to say this for everybody out there in all seriousness, right? Listen, we cannot have the quality of life that we all want here in New Jersey for everyone, right? And that we still need to improve for so many. We cannot have it unless the dollars are there. And right now, I got to say, millionaires, billionaires are doing just fine, right? They're getting more and more and more. Look at what's the next planet Elon Musk wants to go to? What's the next thing they want to throw money at, right? They have more and more money and the rest of us are fighting over scraps. So I say, listen, enough with that myth, right? We've got, by the way, more folks than ever, more millionaires than ever moving into New Jersey, according to the census. That's not just some made up number, right? Look at the facts and the data. They want to be here, but everyone needs to pay their fair share, not millionaires, billionaires getting a break, and the rest of us, getting the shaft, right? We've got to make sure we get a fair share and a fair shake, and that means everybody has to pay the fair amount.
Okay, if you just tuned in, you're listening to the Light Morning Show, powered by AtlanticCityFocus.com. We are recording this and we will have the video available at Atlantic City Focus. In the week, we are here with candidate for governor, Mr. Sean Spiller. I didn't get a chance to ask you about stagnant wages. I did not get a chance to ask what I generally ask every candidate, which would be uh, why someone who is a registered Republican should vote for Sean Spiller. But being that we only have 4 minutes left, I am going to pass the mic back to you and let you make a closing statement and discuss whatever you would like for the close of the show before we sign off the interview.
Well, I appreciate again you having me. Thank you so much to you and for your listeners for tuning in here. But let me also weave in maybe some of your last questions into my answer here, my closing remarks. When you talk about why folks should vote for me, whether that's Republicans, unaffiliateds, independents, Democrats, or anyone else, listen to what I'm talking about. The fact that we need housing that's affordable in all our communities, the fact that we, the people, need to be able to buy homes first and aren't getting bid up by Wall Street, The fact that our rents can't keep going up the way they are because we can't leave it to big developers to do, we need to, and I will be a partner as government to make sure those costs are down. Listen to what I'm talking about, that average cost of $19,000 a year for childcare, where I'll change the system, saying we're not going to pay folks who do that work based on attendance of kids. We keep our little one home, they don't get paid. No, we're going to move it to it based on enrollment, right? Which allows more stability in the system, bringing down cost, more people to get access. We're going to expand the child tax credits and other things for folks who maybe are saving for college or something else. When I talk about the fact of healthcare, as we discussed before, of designed healthcare plans that can save billions of dollars and will save money in your pocket. When I talk about energy costs that go up right now 20%, we've all gotten the notice, going up another 20%. It's about investing in green technologies. Yes, because it's good for the environment, but it's good for our bottom line, right? It saves us, by the way, from paying to put out those wildfires. It saves us from the cleanups from those floods. It saves us from the insurance costs that keep going up. And it saves us from our energy bills that are going up because we need more energy on our grid and we don't have enough. And big oil has kept us hooked and addicted. Now, I say this to you when I talk about those issues, did they sound like progressive issues? Did they sound like conservative issues? Did they sound like Democrat, Republican? To me, these are issues affecting New Jersey residents. It's about how do we make life better? And that to me is at the core of the most important things. We have to make it more affordable, allow people to keep a little bit more money in their pockets so that they can spend a little bit more time, enjoying themselves, enjoying this great state, or supporting their families. That's what I think is going to resonate across the board with everyone. And yes, I do understand it. And yes, this may, resonate with some more than others, but to me, it's also about protecting every single resident in this state. And as an immigrant, as a black man, as somebody who has seen a lot and certainly understands the challenges that are there, I know my most important charge as governor will be to make sure that, hey, even if someone's coming after us, my role is to say, I'm not going to allow us to be divided. I'm going to stand up for every resident and try to do all the things I just said to make life better, not go after folks, divide us, and divert funds that are needed to do the important work. So that's my pitch. That's my ask to everybody out there. I say, listen, I'm Sean Spiller. I'm running for governor because I think this is our chance. I think it's our chance to make a difference in the lives of working class folks, to have somebody who's going to be fighting for us with every single decision that I make. I'm not backed by the rich billionaires, the millionaires, the Wall Street elites, the big developers, the political bosses. I'm supported by working class folks, and that's how we get the policies that we need. And with your help, right now, because I know vote by mails are out. So with your help right now and on June 10th, we're going to win this thing and truly show what the difference is between me and everybody else, as I'm often asked.
Real quick, what's the website or a place where people can get more information on Sean Spiller, or make donations via
Appreciate that.
social media?
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, it's Sean Spiller, Sean Spiller, SP as in Paul, Iller, SeanSpiller.com. That's just SeanSpiller.com. And yeah, thank you for that as well. Love it. The big donate button's on there. Everybody, you can't miss that. So click that. Certainly, we're powered by the people. So anything anyone can give is so appreciated. It really speaks to the support, and certainly you can find out a lot about where we are on all the issues.
Well, this is my first time speaking with you. It's been a pleasure, and you know the my mic is always here. My show is always open and available for you. Anytime you want to come and talk directly to the people, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us.
Well, thank you so much for having me and giving me this opportunity to share my views and raise my voice up on the issues that I think are important. And again, I think it's through things like this. It's through engaging with the public. It's through engaging with all of us collectively, taking action that we're going to see the changes we need. So, thank you for helping me to do that and being a part of this. And thanks for allowing your listeners to hear from me today.
Great. When you become mayor, I'm going to invite you to come to
Well,
the
listen, Mayor already did, so you had me on. When I become
governor.
governor,
Sorry,
we'll talk again. Yeah.
the mayor's race here too.
Yeah,
When
I
you
know you got that going on down there.
when
Yeah.
you become governor, I'm going to invite you to come down and do a meet and greet where you can talk directly to the listeners and the
Deal.
constituents here. Thank
Deal.
you so much. Take
Thanks
care.
so much. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Bye bye.
Bye.